They were some of the best feared soldiers to booty to the battlefields of the 20th Aeon, and they were apprenticed by their adherents to their Führer. The SS Staffel, led by Heinrich Himmler, originally began activity as a claimed babysitter assemblage, tasked with befitting a abutting eye on Hitler. However, it transitioned to become the aristocratic bouncer of the Reich, and additionally the force that agitated out abounding aegis accompanying jobs such as administering the absorption camps. But they had the aggressive addition accepted as Waffen-SS. But if the SS soldiers fell into bondage on the battlefield and were captured alike by the Allies, they faced actual beheading and abounding were attempt on the spot. The Allies feared the SS, and they were accepted for actuality the best adherent who would action to their deaths. But why were SS soldiers added acceptable to be attempt than accustomed Wehrmacht or German army ones? The Waffen-SS were heavily complex and abounding war crimes throughout War II. From administering accumulation shootings and atrocities to accustomed out anti-partisan warfare adjoin resistors, they became accepted for their barbarous actions. Heinrich Himmler, the arch of the SS, capital to absorb the accumulation in the war effort, and he capital his force to be apparent with as abundant authority as soldiers who fought in the accustomed army. And in backward 1939, Hitler, with one eye on a new all-around action, gave Himmler permission to authorize an armed SS force, accepted as a Fein-SS. He was accustomed to activate with 4 divisions, but anon this became added than 20. Half a actor SS men fought in these groups, and they had their own command structure. Instead of aloof aggressive training or weapons training, SS soldiers were accustomed to political conduct and added apprenticeship that focused on ensuring they would accord their lives for the Reich. The affiliated soldiers, who came up to join them, begin them with some of the best equipment, MG-42s, King Tiger tanks, and abundant more, and they had been accustomed stronger accessory than the army in some cases. But afterwards D-Day, there was the acceptance central the affiliated ranks by some soldiers that SS soldiers bear to be dealt with instantly afterwards their abduction or abandonment, and that they should be attempt and accomplished on the spot. Of course, this would accept been a war abomination if addition who surrendered was shot. But why did this acceptability develop? Firstly, the Allies had heard about the SS's acceptability for atrocities and war crimes. The accumulation had become alike with the absorption camps and accumulation murder. Organizations like the Tottenham or Dassich capacity were affiliated to massacres in which hundreds were attempt, and during the action of the Bulge, they accomplished abounding American soldiers and prisoners in the man-made massacre. The Allies knew that the SS accomplished prisoners, including British, Canadian, and American commandos. So aback they encountered SS men in their captivity. They believed that if the tables were turned, they would not be accustomed any mercy. One American adept said that if they wore the SS runes, we didn't booty them prisoner. We had apparent what they did to our boys. Also, the SS soldiers were accepted for angry to the aftermost bullet, and they rarely surrendered willingly. Abounding fought on a back, surrounded, wounded, or alike hopelessly outnumbered. This fabricated them a alarming and capricious adversary, and some SS alike acclimated a apocryphal surrender, bottomward their weapons to a fresh blaze at the Allies again, which led affiliated soldiers to amusement abandonment with suspicion. One British soldier of the 11th Armored Division said that we abstruse bound if he was SS, you didn't assurance him to abandonment properly. They had a acceptability for actuality ambiguous and defiant, which led abounding to be attempt to for actuality captured. But by the final weeks of the war, there were abounding absorption camps which were apparent and begin by the Allies and the Soviets, and they had begin the scenes of massacres. At Dau, for example, they apparent accomplished boxcars aloof al fresco, the capital affected with bags of asleep bodies inside. These are victims of the crimes of the SS Oral the camp. Upon entering Dau for liberation, the Americans attempt abounding SS guards afterwards, seeing this. They were bent up accurately in the effect and approved burning revenge. Some INSAT Scripper members, associates of the afterlife squads that rampaged in the East afterwards abduction, were about accomplished in advance of the Soviet population. Now the uniforms for the SS fabricated them absolutely actual, accessible to analyze and additionally spot. The SS generally wore their characteristic collar badge with SS runes, and they additionally had claret accumulation tattoos usually beneath their larboard arm. A baby mark with a letter R. Some at the end of the war to abstain abduction or abuse for actuality, a affiliate of the SS absolutely austere these off and approved to abolish the tattoo. The SS were so calmly apparent, and it was difficult for SS men to alloy in with approved Wehrmacht troops. So already articular, they risked actual beheading and could be alike spotted in the best barbaric action situations on the Eastern Front. The action amid accurately the SS and the Red Army was one of annihilation. The SS were accustomed roles to annihilation and assassinate those who were said to be racially inferior or abominable in the eyes of the Nazis. SS capacity took allotment in anti-partisan operations, that complex annihilation of civilians. The Soviets saw them as abyss and not soldiers, and captured SS men were attempted frequently on the atom by associates of the Red Army in backfire for the Commissar order. They saw the SS as those men who had austere bottomward villages and organized massacre, and there would be no mercy. Now, official orders from the affiliated aerial command did appeal that all prisoners of war be advised in accordance to the Geneva Convention, but on the acreage of conflict, whether this was taken actively or not was rather debatable. Following the Malmade massacre, in which 84 American prisoners of war were murdered by SS troops, the Americans began to booty beneath SS prisoners. This was additionally appear oral the Canadian and British ranks in Normandy, and additionally in the Netherlands. Reports of attempt SS soldiers rarely fabricated, hit a back to aerial command, and commanders generally angry a dark eye too, compassionate the affections of their men, and additionally the acceptability of the SS. The accumulation had been indoctrinated by the Nazis to accept that if they did abatement into adversary easily, that they would be bent and executed. Abounding were told that the Allies, abnormally the Soviets, would assassinate them. Hence why they went bottomward with a fight. But in the final weeks of the Second Apple War, adjustment bankrupt bottomward beyond Germany and the advanced lines. Affiliated and Soviet troops saw the end in sight, but were beat by the fighting. Civilians were annihilation SS men in the streets too, and acreage executions began, and acreage executions became common alike by Wehrmacht soldiers, who abhorrent the SS for the Nazis and for assiduity the war. But to sum up, the SS soldiers were added acceptable to be attempt during their abduction because their units had committed atrocities which becoming them a acceptability for brutality. Also, they fought fanatically, and sometimes there were cases of fate surrender. Acceptation, it was alarming to booty them a prisoner. Also, the affiliated soldiers' capital animus for the annihilation of prisoners of war and adolescent countrymen they had heard about. They were additionally accessible to atom and identify, which meant they did not alloy and able-bodied to the accepted German military. But while abounding SS men meta-agitated and aback, they were captured. Others did administer to adumbrate their identities and absolutely alloy into a post-war world, artifice any abuse and any anatomy of justice. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, bang subscribe and maybe acquaint us what you'd like to see in our abutting video in the comments below. Thanks afresh for watching.